Catus, Maximus here, this time with a quick review of the Bondhus Stubby L-wrench set with ball ends. The Stubby would be the torque end, or what would normally be the shorter end, and indeed these are pretty stubby. Here's a standard set of Bondhuses, and here are Stubbies. They're about half the length. It's really a pretty big deal, and of course if you collect or have spare Allen wrenches, nothing prevents you from just cutting off the ends and making your own Stubbies. I've certainly done that a few times, but it's kind of nice just to have a normal set that's manufactured that way. That way you have like the nice little chamfer and all that kind of deal. And speaking of deals, I will warn people about Amazon's dynamic pricing. I bought these because they were, I don't know if it was a holiday sale, but it was 20 bucks for the set. Brand new. They are still American made. They came in a pretty decent, sturdy plastic package, so fortunately the little ones are less likely to get bent, which is a big deal with Allen wrenches that are shipped, is the little ones that get bent over. And surprisingly enough, besides some of their claims, world's strongest steel, world's best corrosion protection, this is a carbon finish, and I'm willing to bet 316 marine grade stainless steel will certainly out corrosion resist these. So I'm don't know where they're getting that. They have a whole bunch of other, both, they're protanium. But I was going to mention that even the card's printed in the USA, so they're trying. Bondhus, I don't think are the world's best hex keys, but they are certainly pretty good. If you just want to recommend somebody what's a decent set of hex keys that aren't going to totally disappoint me, you recommend Bondhuses. And they have worked hard to remain domestically manufactured in the United States. Back to the pricing, I paid 20 bucks for this set. When I went to go do this video, I checked on the price again just to see. They'd already went up to like $25 or something, so I don't really like that about Amazon. Prices just fluctuate all over the place. And Bondhuses are still made in the US, but I have to say they're not the same as an old Bondhus. I think the steel, generally speaking, is a pretty good grade. Actually, if we take a look at the sizing, and we'll just take this 3/8, these things are always pretty tight when they're brand new. A big deal of hex keys is how tight the tolerances are. They really want to be nominally sized. So if we're looking at the, what is this, 3/8, then it should be pretty close to 375. And with Bondhuses, they usually are absolutely spot on. And that's a big deal for things or for hex keys getting a better grip. The problem is on hex head fasteners, they're just more sensitive to tolerances. They're not like a socket driving an external bolt. You really want them sized absolutely correctly. Another thing is to make sure that they have pretty sharp corners. As we can see here, the corners are not too bad on this. And that's one of the issues, such as, for example, these Titans here, is the fact that the corners, they're chrome plated, and the chrome plating can wear off and make them undersized, but it also adds a bit of rounding to the corners so they don't get quite as good a grip. So as far as sizing, let's take a comparison, say, with these, and these are the older, nicer Titan powder-coated ones. Titan did cheapify them some. And if we do another little measurement here, get that on the metric, it's pretty surprising. These Titans seem pretty decent, but when you actually measure them, you say, oh, that's plenty close. That's 4.98. But if we take, say, the 5mm out of the Bondhus, the only thing to really complain about these is since they are short L wrenches, there's not much to grip on when you're pulling them in and out of these cases, so they can be annoying. But if we measure the Bondhus here, it's actually significantly oversized. This would actually be well, there we go. Now that I must have had a little piece of grit or something on there. There we go. Interesting. You'll learn that with measuring tools. If something's odd, there can be particles that you really can't see, but you can certainly measure them. So these are really spot on. This is getting just over 5mm. We're on this, it's slightly under 5mm, and you'll notice that. This is just will have more play, and then it causes more internal wear inside the hex head cap screw, and can also jam up easier. And I've really noticed that. It's come to a point to where basically I only use like the Bondhuses or Chescos or other really high quality brands. Other than that, I thought they were a pretty great deal. Although I will have to say that a Bondhus isn't exactly a Bondhus anymore, and they've had to try to do what they can to, you know, can continue to make them domestically manufactured and still have enough sales to really keep them in business. But these things are neat. I really like the fact that Bondhus does make these stubbies. And to give you a little example of why stubbies are just so handy, there's just so many situations where not just the clearance, but the fact that the wrench is just closer to the head of the fastener, so you're delivering your force a little bit easier. Here's an example. Here's a perfect situation. This is an area where if you just need to tighten up a fastener like this, it's essentially impossible to get a normal Allen wrench in there. And of course, with the stubby, you can just get it in there, and man, super convenient. Now, on another fastener that's easier to access, just to show the amount of play, if I can do this through the camera, we'll put in the Bondhus. It's really tight. We can see not a lot of play. And these are grade 12.9 fasteners, so they're machined pretty well. Now, if we take the Titan, it's going to be pretty surprising. Here's the Titan. It's all over the place. It's almost like it's the wrong size Allen key. Yet that's something that's only a few hundredths of a millimeter size difference. In the real world, makes a big difference in whether or not you're going to strip out the fastener or cause excessive wear, or actually just be able to remove it. And so that's generally why I recommend Bondhuses, is because they can generally be found for reasonable prices, and they have a good variety, and they have really good sizing. And so that's really why I recommend them, is that they seem to be plenty strong enough, even though they may not be the strongest. Just the fact that if I recommend these to somebody, that they're less likely to actually have a fastener get stripped out simply because it's a tighter fitting wrench. What I mean by a Bondhus isn't a Bondhus anymore. The best example is I actually have a vintage Bondhus, back when they used to tell you when they were made out of Monticello, Minnesota, and they actually were shorter sets like this. And man, that thing is tight. They used to have a much more interesting stamping where they had a special shape there versus the stamping on these newer stubbies. Whoop, that's the 3/8. Let's get the right size here. It just doesn't seem to be quite the same. You know, if you compare that, it's a little bit cheaper of a roll stamp. The other thing I was going to mention that becomes real obvious is that the ball ends aren't quite the same. On the old Bondhuses, they used to do another extra little undercut there. Really makes it so you don't get any kind of like camming when you're turning that fastener. It's really pretty smooth. They stopped doing that because that's another machining operation and it costs more money. The other thing that I can mention here is on the old one, you can see how well the curvature is machined on the ball end. On these newer ones, you can see just a little bit of a flat. You can see it reflecting off the light there. Where you can see on this one, really is just a much better curvature. If you look right at the side, you can almost see that flat. And that's the other situation, is that they've just made the machining just a little bit cheaper. So besides that, for some reason, I always talk too much in my reviews. I like these little stubbies. And even at $25 or whatever the price happens to be for the day on Amazon or where you find these, definitely pretty handy. They're just easier to work with because when you have them in the fastener, you just want to stay in there a little bit easier because they're not flopping over. And obviously giving you that opportunity to get a lot of extra reach without having to go find some spare hex key and cut it off. And for those who are questioning, yep, these are what would be considered, they're not short, they're standard length. These Titans are long, so that's what a long handle might look like there. So they're still more than reasonably long enough. Don't know what else to really say. I don't swear by them as much as Adam Savage, the Mythbusters. I saw that he did a video about Bondhus wrenches, and he was really cheerleading for them. I think they're definitely pretty good considering their price, and I like to support domestic, American-made manufacturers. I live in America, and that's really what it is with Bondhus. I think they are they're the baseline for a good set of Allen wrenches. They may not be the best, but they're certainly a lot better, especially with the tolerances, than other brands that may look nice and pretty with powder coats and have fancier names like Titan. These aren't going to deliver like these will. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody who's been watching and subscribing, and if you haven't subscribed, please do. And if you haven't commented, go ahead and do that as well. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.